Okay, so this is what I have when it comes to pastels and charcoal for you guys. So this is an example of just white charcoal on paper, and it's just white. You have the option of using white and black, and if you're using pastel, you can use white on all the grays in between and black, because we actually have that. So your options for charcoal, we have these charcoal sticks, which are really good for very rough drawing. So that's just a stick of charcoal. Have you guys used those before, everybody? Okay, here's how they come. They're very messy. And they're very light and very dainty. Dainty, they're just lightweight. So everybody else has felt these before, they're like, oh, and you drop it, it goes, you're like, oh. So these are really good for a real quick drawing. So if you were to do like, I'm going to draw Eric right now, here's his hair, his eyebrows, and his nose, eyebrow, and oh, he started smiling, so I gotta put the dimples in, the little chin, you know. So if you're going to be drawing like that, this is what this is good for, because you don't have to ever sharpen it, because it's just a stick of charcoal, okay? And then when you're done with that, of course you can go back in and start filling things in. This is not my jam, it's not my favorite thing. I like to do a little bit more detail work if I'm going to work with charcoal. But once you start filling it in, you can always go in there and start blending it with whatever tools you have to blend. What you don't ever want to blend with is your hand. I know it's right there and it's easy to do, but you see how I just sort of filled up the background with some more of that charcoal, and then we'll go back in and like add more. So the way charcoal works is you add layers, 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 and it darkens it out. Okay? If you're using the pastels are a little different in that they're not just dry charcoal. They have a little bit of like an oil feel to them, because there's other colors and different pigments in it. But before I move on to that, I'm just going to show you these other examples for your how's the ebony pencil get in there? What you can use with charcoal. So we have white charcoal pencils, a few. I have some white charcoal sticks, and then I also have regular charcoal pencils. So you can see there's a white charcoal pencil right there, and there's the black charcoal pencil. So of course you can get into like really small spaces there and start to layer up that charcoal, and it'll be nice and dark. And of course you could do quick drawing, right? The white is not going to do much on white paper, but the white's going to do a lot on black paper. So you can see it makes marks that look really nice. If you're using charcoal, stick to charcoal. If you're using pastel, stick to pastel. I wouldn't recommend mixing the two, because you might have a blending issue, but then if you don't try it, you don't see what happens. So you might actually like it if you try the two, but my recommendation is just stick to the one or the other. So if you're doing just black and white, charcoal would be nice. Plus we have these pencils, so you can get into really fine areas if you want to. Any questions about charcoal? I know that was like super duper fast, and my demo was like, but if that's what you feel like that's what you want to do, because you don't, you're not into dirty hands and using sticks, and you want the tip to be sharp, definitely consider using those. Okay, so for pastel, the difference is that we're working with sticks mostly. They do sell pastels that come in pencils, but I don't have them. And actually all that we have, because I don't normally do pastels, are what was left in this room, what I can salvage. So you can see I got like a really weird array of pastels here for you guys to use. So all of these gray toned, so black with all the grays to white, these are all pastels, and there's a couple sets of these. So if that's something you might want to use, we might check the sets there. If that's something you want to use, we'll put together a set for you to take and use that way. There are some sets with colors. There's these 3 sets, and then there's this really wild fluorescent set. So hey, if you want to give it a go, give it a go. I think this might be neat on black. I don't know, what's this bigger color here? Because they're kind of, oh, these ones are pretty old, but the color's really bright. So having a high contrast between these bright colors and the dark background might be nice. So these are here if somebody wants to give it a shot. Otherwise, what I like are these ones here. So we have a very limited color palette to choose from. My favorite being this blue, and then there's some grays, white, black, and then we have lots of different brown tones and reds and yellows. So actually there's some very good options for skin tones in here, and also, you know, the black and white, so you can shade and tint what it is that you're doing. So the blue, like this, it makes a really nice mark on the black. So if I was going to do a drawing on colored paper, so this was just a sample that I have from, I think, a very long time ago. That's all, you can already see that it's a still life that's been sketched out in white. What I would do is go back and add my grays and some blacks and maybe one color, which might be nice. So for instance, you can see, like I said, it's all sketched out in white. So what I would do next is I would go in and I would put in maybe the highlights, and then I would go back and fix the middle tones, because right now the middle tones are kind of lost. They look sort of like a sketch instead of intentionally put there. So, for example, maybe there's a highlight there. Definitely on these flowers here. So I wanted them to look like glass. But what I'm going to do is put some white in first, because this is so dark. I already kind of worked on this a bit. I'll put the white in, and then if I wanted some color to be really, really bright, I could go back in and put some color on it. So instead of just hitting the color directly on the colored paper, if you put white on it first, it'll blend it and end up being pretty clear what the color is. Maybe I'll do that grayish or something. I wouldn't want blue all over. I'd want to be very specific where I'm going to put that in my composition. So now that I got some of the pastel on the paper, you can blend it in different ways. So I'm going to take this is, what do you call it? Q-tip. So if you use a Q-tip, the way a Q-tip works with pastels is it'll move it around, but it sort of wipes it off at the same time. So you see I'm just kind of like, right? That's the technical term, I'm gonna poof this around. So what I did was I sort of spread it out and I got it into the fibers of the paper. So, blow that away. You can see it's a lot lighter. So if you make a mistake, you can kind of wipe it away with these, or you can blend it into the paper. And then what I would do is I would go back and I would intentionally add a little bit more of the light value so that it eventually looks like it's blended together. The paper that I have for you guys to use is not this particular type. This is 90 pounds. It's got a really deep texture, and this is like regular construction paper. I have one that's sort of in the middle. It's really nice for drawing. So when you're blending, you won't have to blend so much because you won't have so much texture there. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So in this example, I blended it so I could get it into the texture, and then I go back over top. So Q-tips are nice to have around. Paper towels and tissue paper is also very nice to have around. The reason you don't want to blend it with your hands is, why does it keep ripping like that? The reason you don't want to blend it with your hands is because your hands have oils on them, even if you just washed them. If you do this, eventually what's going to happen is the pastel's not going to stick, and then you're going to have like a little oil mark or part where it's not going to lay where you want. So say I made a really big mistake and I don't really want that there, I can sort of wipe it away. But then you can also see how this would be nice for blending. Yeah, I could go back in with my color. So that's Q-tips, that's tissue, and then I also have blending sticks. You guys are gonna like blending sticks. If you use these with, I'm holding a cigarette, I'm not. If you've used these with ebony pencil, then you're familiar with how they work. They're even better with charcoal and pastel because you can like really super get into those fine areas and move the charcoal and pastel where you want it to go. So say there's like a real sharp point, you can push the charcoal or the pastel up into that point. You know what I'm saying? You can really blend your blacks and your whites and your grays in the middle so that you don't see those sharp, changes from the black and the white. So these are here for you guys to use. If you use it with black, you can continue to use it with black. You just have to wipe it off before you use it. So it's not like you use it and throw it away. These are meant to be used over and over, so you just wipe them off. It might be stained, but try it first, try it first and then go and blend with it. So this is an option for you guys. If you're using more than one color on a colored piece of paper, so this is just another still life that of course is not done. But what I want to kind of explain to you is this. If you're using black, the black is the dark. It's the values that are very dark. So this paper is green. So everything that's dark green, I'm going to add black to. Everything that's light green, I'm going to add white to. Anything that's true green, I'm going to leave green. So for instance, this bowl right here, if it's green, I'm going to leave it green. I'm not going to shade everything in black and white. So you want to use the color in the background, you know, to kind of heighten whatever the object is or whatever it is that you're drawing. What you guys are doing foreshortening, so that would be great. So it's like a monochromatic piece, but you only have this color in the background to start with. You got to do everything in between with the black and white. So anyway, there's really nothing much more I can do with this except sit here and kind of fuss with it. I would make this maybe a little bit darker in the background because I have no idea what that is. I would definitely make this vase lighter so that it doesn't look like it's the same chinaware as this here. My grapes definitely need a little bit more highlights on them, but if I left those white, it doesn't make sense. So what's nice about the pastels is you can go back in.
Those are the legs.
So I added white and black. That gray didn't do much because that gray is very similar to the white. Are we almost out of time? Everybody's kind of standing up. Okay, no. But anyway, you see how that little grape looks a little bit better now that I've given it a little highlight. And that grape's not green. That grape now is kind of like gray or whatever color we can imagine it to be because it doesn't match this. So that was more of just an explanation of how to use instead of showing you how to use it. But I really wanted to give you guys the materials so you can give it a go because a lot of this has to do with how you manipulate the pastels. So some of you might color with them, but you definitely want to blend. Some of you might blend them with each other and not use any of these tools at all. The best thing to do is to try it. So I cut up a bunch of pieces of paper if you want to just kind of give it a try today. If you want to take any home, you are welcome to. You see I emptied those trays right there, right by you. If you want to like take a couple sticks of these and make your own tray to take, you can. Any of you who want to use the colors, you can. If there's more than one person who wants to use like a whole set of color, let me know. We'll try to figure something out. Maybe Mr. G has some sets that we can use. Anybody feeling like really jazzy and want to go fluorescent? Oh, thank God. You were thinking about it, huh? Instead of anybody feeling like going fluorescent? Okay. Is there anything in particular you wanted me to show you before I set you off? Because I know that was really quick and not a lot of this. Give it a go? Okay. Skin tones? Skin tones. What's nice is these are already mixed, but I usually start with brown and then lighten it up. I never use the black. This paper here, the white paper that I have little pieces of, this is 90-pound paper. That's really good for pastels. So if you're going to do a little demo, use this paper here. And I'm going to leave these out. If you guys want to draw on them, you can, because sometimes it's nice to just, instead of trying to come up with something yourself, if it's already there, you can kind of like play around with it. Okay.
No, he wanted. His mom was like, just as long as you like it. But
so what I'm doing, because I haven't used these before, is I'm just trying them out to make sure the edges aren't, like if people pick them up and touch them, there'll be oils around the edges and then you go to use it and then it doesn't do anything. So if you just kind of give it a try first, and it breaks open the edges. And who knows how old these things are. I don't know. What are these, from like the 70s or something? Look at those boxes. Okay, so this one's a little bit too red. What is this one? Burnt umber? Crimson Lake. I thought there was a burnt umber. Does anybody see?
it's not this one.
No. Oh, this one's a smart umber.
No.
Oh yeah, that's much better. I don't know if you guys can see the difference, but this one seems very red to me, and this one's much more brown. To me, is like a mild skin tone. So the two of these would probably work. So if, depending on who you're drawing or what type of skin you're going to use, it's a lot easier to go darker than it is to lighten it up. You can always add white to it, but then again, it's not really the true color.
Oh, Brittany.
So I don't know if you can see here, but you see those little blotches? It's because of this edge here that's not.
I can teach you.
Lightly. I'm not saying start with this, I'm just doing demo work here.
I know. Just so over it. Just like, oh, we can get Lewis's hair from the backyard. What are you? Why? Did you keep his hair in your backyard? Well, we're supposed to cut your hair in your backyard so we can inside the house. I already have a dog that's shedding. I don't think Lewis is shedding.
Yeah? Not enough. Pretty good. Darken it up.
So you just add another layer.
Yep. Depending on who you're doing, who you're drying. What I find nice about darker skin tones is that they look really nice with the highlight colors being blues and violets with white. Because of the lighting. I don't know how much photography you guys have looked into, but when you're shooting darker skin tones, you don't use LED lights, you don't use yellow lights, you use blue and violet lights because it just looks a lot more deep, right? So what's nice is we got some blue. We don't have any violet, but we got blue. Oh, we might have violet. Ooh, this might be nice over here, you know. Instead of using black.
Oh, we went to training park to the homecoming game, right? Right, and we tried to be on the other. Okay, I got you. Gotta stop.
Try to put a little bit more color in there. So that's purple, white to purple to the brown. Burnt umber. That's your skin tone. Not your skin tone, but put a little light down first.
So you said we can like take some photos?
Absolutely, yes. Use them. I think I'm more pinky.
I'm a god.
I just know that about my own skin tone. Almost.
Does that actually help?
I think sometimes, I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? Oh no, my shadow's gone. I'm not that dark. Anyway, I know I'm a little bit more pink, like olive. So I'm lining up my arm with that color there. What happens sometimes is people won't put enough on there, so there's nothing to blend it with, but if you push too hard, it takes it out. So it's just finding that in between. Yeah, that's definitely not me. And oils, back in the day, they would put green and yellow first, and then the skin tone, so the burnt umbers and the mix that into it, because what happens when you dye, your lighter skin, you start to turn like green. So it would radiate underneath of the oil. That's probably me.
Yeah, I just asked around.
Yeah. So anyway, I used these two mostly. You can use white, put the white down first, depending on what type of look you're looking for. Like for you, I would definitely, if I had a yellowish, I would put that underneath first, and then work with the browns on top. I think you're similar to me, you're more olive. I I know I'm very like light skinned, but if I were to get a tan, you're olive. My brothers are like this too. With a little bit of red around like here. I'm very pink, so I will definitely utilize this. Do you see like kind of where I'm figuring where the colors would be? And then again, depending on the darkness of the skin, you don't want to do highlights with white. You want to make sure you use a color that's going to complement it. So the darker it goes, use blues and purples. Is that helpful?
And for lighter?
If you're lighter, start with white underneath and then add the brown on top. So I'm a little bit more pale and rosy. Yeah, I think we're similar, huh?
Yeah.
And skin tones, everybody always gets like a little. I mean, you look at it, there's colors there, you know. So yeah, definitely like yellows, olive. When I say olive, you guys know what I mean, like a yellowy green. So I would give it a go. You want to sit here and try? There's some paper there. Try out all of them because you might like the softer pastels better. Yes. Especially if you're going to use them for this. If you're not going to use them for this, don't worry about it right now. But
Great.
let me know if there's anything else you guys want. You can draw on those too.
I want to try this.
Wait, what time is it? Stop. Is this still recording?